Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Shahrawat, Director of FinTech Investment Banking with Rosenblatt Securities, to discuss bridging the divide between TradFi and DeFi in the 14th Annual Rosenblatt FinTech Summit, where top thought leaders in both spaces will be presenting. Dee, it is great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks. And let's kick it off with where we are right now with TradFi and DeFi. What are the key trends that you're watching?
Sure, Joe. Thank you for having us again. It's always a pleasure being on Nasdaq Trade Talks. So, everybody knows traditional finance. I don't have to explain that, the way that finance operates across payment, lending, borrowing, insurance, and investing. But decentralized finance, which is the outer edge, the cutting edge or the frontier of the crypto and the blockchain space, is a fascinating area, which is basically a replacement of where software and smart software is replacing the trust that traditional regulated financial entities have offered in all kinds of areas. So replacing all of that payment companies like MasterCard, Visa, investment banks like us have provided in capital markets, in every sector, replacement of those regulated entities with smart software, it was referred to as decentralized finance. And over the last 1 year, one of the metrics that is used to value or evaluate the size of the DeFi market is called total value locked. And the total value locked in the DeFi space is about $225 billion. A year ago, it was like $50 billion. So it's massive activity happening in that space. It's still a kind of an experiment stage, but absolutely fascinating amount of investor money, software talent, big financial institutions, all moving in the direction of decentralized finance.
How does this have the potential to address ESG priorities?
Great question. We actually have a panel on that, at our conference next week. But decentralized finance, because it actually takes you out of the realm of traditional finance, it gives a voice and an ability for a tremendous amount of people that have been shut out of the traditional finance space, gives them an opportunity to participate in the decentralized finance space. So people who may not have a bank account can receive simply a deposit, for a service they may have provided as a gardener or a landscaper or whatever. They may not have a bank account, or you could be in sub-Saharan Africa looking to get remittance of money from your relative working in Europe. You can have that happen without you having even had a bank account. So it gives you the opportunity to access financial services like we haven't had it before. Climate change, for example, tremendous amount of innovations happening in decentralized finance, giving the opportunity to the average consumer, the average institution to participate, to make a difference in climate change through decentralized finance. So across ESG, financial inclusion, broader access to financial instruments, decentralized finance gives you the opportunity of doing the things that you could not have done as well using traditional finance.
Dee, it's so interesting. It sounds like it's no longer an us versus them story, certainly since 2019, 2020. How are traditional finance and DeFi leveraging their strengths to work together more efficiently?
Sure. And that's exactly the theme of our conference next week, because you're absolutely right. The first reincarnation of decentralized finance 2 years ago was simply one that decentralized finance is going to eat the traditional finance company's lunch. And over time, we realized that much as the decentralized finance concept has got tremendous amount of potential, but if you look at the concept, there are only about 250, 300 million people in the world that are involved in any way, shape, or form in the crypto space. If you want to make crypto, blockchain, and DeFi really mainstream around the world, both for retail as well as for institutional, we have to build meaningful bridges with the traditional finance world. And we're seeing real financial institutions, whether it's in Fidelity Investments here in Boston in the investment space, JP Morgan Capital Markets, Wells Fargo, traditional financial companies are stepping up to the table, making meaningful bridges with the decentralized finance space across payments, lending, investing, and insurance. Of course, it's a 10-year process. But like I said, rather than just simply saying all DeFi is going to eat traditional finance's lunch, now we're evolving to the time where there are DeFi companies basically saying, how do we reach out to the traditional customer, addressing issues like identity, AML, KYC, which are obviously big regulatory concerns, making those meaningful bridges and the on-ramps and the off-ramps between the traditional finance world and the DeFi world. All of that is beginning to happen right now. Very early stages, but the foundation is definitely being set up right now.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's incredibly exciting, certainly with the content that I cover. Finally, Dee, tell us about the 14th Annual Rosenblatt FinTech Summit.
Sure, Jill. Thank you for the opportunity. So next week on May 17th and 18th is our 14th FinTech Summit. It's called Bridging the Divide between Traditional Finance and DeFi. All the details on our website. We are still accepting invitations, requests for registration. It's by registration only. But the conference is basically 15 CEOs of 15 very careful companies, plus a fireside chat with us, Hirji, the president of Figure, that are companies that are either building infrastructure in the decentralized finance space or building the bridges between traditional finance and decentralized finance. This is something we've done for a long time, looking at cutting edge trends in fintech. But next week is a 2-day focus on both days, a deep dive into what's happening in this concept of bridging the divide between traditional finance and DeFi.
All right, Dee, we appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you very much, Jill. Thank you for having us.